Over time, America's technology has changed very much. It basically started with sod houses. Sod houses are the successor to log cabins during the frontier settlement of Canada and the United States. Sod houses were houses that kept you warm in the winter when it's cold out and cool in the summer when it's hot outside. Sod houses started to become popular around 1862 and went through to the 1900s. Many farmers lived in sod houses.
If you were out in the prairie, they cut the sod just like they would cinder block. And then they piled them up, and made the house. It was very warm in the winter and very cool in the summer. They made real nice homes. And then my family took lime and salt, and that was their painted the interior. That is like calcimine.
Farmers also use barbed wire for their fences. Barbed wire is wire with clusters of short, sharp spikes at intervals along it. They use barbed wire to restrain cattle. It is also much cheaper and easier to use. Barbed wire became popular around 1863 and is still used today, but not as much due to the invention of electrical fences.
Later in history, employees would start going on something called a strike. A strike is when a group of employees would group up and refuse to work. They would do this because they either didn't think they were getting the right amount of pay for the amount of hours they work, or they wouldn't like the conditions. Most people that went on strike wouldn't stay on strike for long, because if you go on strike, you no longer make money until you come off a strike. So when people start needing money again, they'll come out of strike. Not many people still go on strike today. It was mostly done in the 1900s. One famous strike was the Pullman strike. The company's manufacturing plants were in a company-owned town on the outskirts of Chicago. Pullman publicized his company in town as a model community filled with contented, well-paid workers. The Pullman workers, however, disagreed, especially on the onset of the economic depression that began in 1893. During the Depression, Pullman sought to preserve profits by lowering labor costs. When the firm slashed its workforce from 5,500 to 3,300 and cut wages by an average of 25%, the Pullman workers struck.
For people who are maybe historians who know about the Pullman strike, they think of it all being in Chicago, where the strike broke out and started. It also is known across the country as the mail strike, but its real claim to fame is it's one of the first reasonably successful efforts to have a nationwide boycott or a strike.
As time goes on, there are people called muckrakers. Muckrakers are people who intentionally seek out unpublished criminal acts or corruption. They were also photographers. They would go places to take pictures and show people in the news. One famous picture is a picture of the poor in New York City taken by Jacob Riis. Muckrakers would do this to raise awareness of social issues for the people. They would find out the truth of things so people knew what would actually go on.
Labor and political corruption in order to expose the truth to the American people. They wanted the government to get involved, take action, and make changes in order to improve society. Muckrakers used their own superpowers like photographs, books, and political cartoons in order to capture the country's attention, which led to new laws, stricter standards, and a safer, more fair way of life for the American people.
The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory was set on fire from what was said in an accident. Many people died, mostly young women, and not many people could get out because the employees had locked the fire escapes. There were people jumping out of windows to save their lives. There were elevators then, but some were blocked off or couldn't fit enough people to save. Although, if elevators weren't there, many people wouldn't have been survived. Soon after the installation of automatic sprinklers and outward open doors made factory work safer.
There was a trial, and the trial found that the owners were not guilty, for they had broken no law. Yes, they might not have been very nice to have locked in these young women, but there was
pretty quickly, and the doors were locked, allegedly to keep out union organizers. This had, been a company that resisted unionization, was trying to. So with this rapidly spreading fire, there was really very little way to get out, and the result was a horrible carnage.